All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. So as usual, we're going to start with some announcements. Then we have a recommended reading for tonight, our affirmation of the day. Then we'll do some introductions and victories. We'll listen to an audiobook excerpt from my book, Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. Come back for our topic discussion. Take a break and then come back for our assignment and Q&A and wrap everything up by about 9 o'clock. Reminder that today's workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video and mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. I still have a few paperbacks left. The first edition paperback of Be Bigger Than You Think You Are, author signed. Use checkout code WORKSHOP20 to get a 20% discount at BeBiggerToday.com/book. And while you're there, check out a copy of my New York City photo book, New York Cityscapes. This is a collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. We each have our own unique and amazing take on the New York City skyline and landmarks and all that. It's a great book, on sale on my website, $16.95, BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore. Still have the pre-order available for the audiobook version of Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. This is going to be the second edition. It should actually be closer to about 10 hours, and it's $9.99. Comes with a full money-back guarantee. If you don't love it, just let me know, and I'll send you your money back. Same is true for the paperback, but I know you're going to love it. Get your copy at BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore. And while you're there, check out some merch, hats and t-shirts. Save 20%. Use the discount code MERCH20 at checkout at BeBiggerToday.com/merch. And also check out my original art and photography. These are professionally framed, signed prints of my landscapes, cityscapes, and abstract images. And here's a little commercial for you guys. Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today. And moving right along, so that's my original art. You can also get some refrigerator magnets while you're there. These are the Forgiveness refrigerator magnets. They're available at BeBiggerToday.com/merch. And there is a story behind these refrigerator magnets. I talk about the licensing deal that I did for a bunch of my New York City photos for souvenirs, New York City souvenirs. And there's a whole story behind that. If you're interested, check out this article that I wrote for Morning Laziness. There's a link on the homepage of BeBiggerToday.com. It'll take you to that article, which explains the whole deal. And a reminder that this Sunday, March 14th, from 3 to 4 p.m., we're doing our monthly hangout. This is unstructured, no agenda, informal, unrecorded opportunity to socialize and hang out. So all are welcome. The meeting code and the passcode are on the screen. It will be again this Sunday, March 14th, from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Did I say all were welcome? And I'm available for one-on-one coaching and corporate consulting. If you're an artist, a photographer, a creative person, or if you have a company or work for a company and you want me to come in and speak to your management team, your sales force on how they can be bigger than they think they are, reach out to me through the website at BeBiggerToday.com. Finally, I'm accepting donations in order to offer the workshop at no charge and keep it open to everyone. We have a suggested donation of $5 per week or $20 per month. Nobody will be turned away for lack of funds. You can send your contribution to paypal.me/Peter Alessandria, all one word. And thank you everybody who has already made their donations for the month and contributions. I really appreciate that. All right, so let's jump into the workshop with our recommended reading. Tonight's recommended reading is entitled The Law of Financial Success, written by a fellow named Edward Beals. Now, this book was published in 1907. So it's actually a little bit dated in terms of some of the information that's in there. But I wanted to bring it to you guys' attention because I think there's a lot to be gained from this book and a couple of other books. Not so much necessarily, I mean, it is helpful in terms of generating more financial success in our lives. But because of he talks so much about the power of intention, willpower. He talks about having a definiteness of purpose and an unwavering will. Now, we can apply that. It's not just for financial success. We can apply that to anything in our lives that we want to manifest, that we want to bring into our lives. So I love the idea of having a definiteness of purpose, an unwavering will, and that kind of ties into the affirmations for the day, which I'm going to share in a moment. But this really speaks to me of the power of intention. And we've talked about this in the past. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I think I talked about it. The people who succeed in life, for the most part, are not the most talented people. They're not the smartest people. They're not the most good-looking people. They're the people who want it the most. They're the people who have the strongest desire and who are willing to do whatever it takes to get to where they want to be. So that speaks to me of having a definiteness of purpose and an unwavering will. So again, that's what I like about his book. He talks about that, as well as mentioning the law of attraction, how we attract to us people, situations, circumstances that are in alignment with our predominant thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and about that situation. Now, you can find this book in a lot of places. It's actually in the public domain at this point. But where I got it was, and I mentioned this in the past, there's a guy named Brian Scott, and his website is The Reality Revolution. And in particular, I really like his YouTube channel. And basically what he does is he reads these books and then puts them on YouTube. So, and he's got a great voice and a great style in terms of his presentation and all that. So, and he has all kinds of great stuff there. It's not just, audiobooks on financial success. So his name is Brian Scott. The YouTube channel is The Reality Revolution. The URL you see on the screen right now is for this particular book. But if you just go to his YouTube channel, he's got so much great stuff there. He's a big fan of Neville Goddard, who was a big New Thought person back in the probably the 1930s, and a bunch of other people. So I highly recommend his website, or his YouTube channel and his website. And this book, as I said, again, this book, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours to listen to it. And I think it's definitely worth it because he puts so much emphasis on having a positive attitude, the power of intention, the power of not giving up on ourselves, not giving up on our dreams. So check it out. All right, and in that same vein, our affirmations of the day for tonight are: I can, I will, I must. Now, again, we've talked a lot about the power of affirmations. Our affirmations are an attempt to consciously and deliberately change our state, change our emotional state, because we know when we have positive thoughts, we have positive feelings. When we have positive feelings, we speak positive words and take positive actions. And when we speak positive words and take positive actions, we have positive outcomes in our lives. So think of something that's important to you, something you'd like to achieve. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing ever in your life. You could start with something small and just remind yourself on a regular basis throughout the day that this is something that you want to achieve in your life. It's something you want to bring into your life. It's something you want to experience in your life. It may be for the benefit of other people. It doesn't necessarily have to be a selfish thing. But having this definiteness of purpose and intention by telling yourself, I can, I will, and I must achieve that goal, realize that goal, whatever it is that you want to bring into your life. So use the power of these of these affirmations. All right, so this is the portion of the workshop where if you're new, you can introduce yourself, or if you would like to share a victory or celebration from the past week, this is an opportunity to do that. All you need to do is unmute, and we can take it away. Who wants to start us off? Cynthia.
Hi, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to be here with all of you. And I share that I just keep doing little incremental steps along the way to do just what you're talking about, to live my purpose with volume. Woo! Thank you.
Thank you. Volume, I like that. Live with volume or loudness. All right, great. Who else?
I've been running around, but hi, I'm here to say hi.
Hi, Barb.
How are you? I didn't get the first part, but I think I remember now. I'm just here to say hi. And it almost sounds like a 12-step thing. I'm working it every day. I really am. It's a struggle, but I'm working it.
All right. I'll take it. I'll take that.
Yeah, that's all I can. That's all I can. That's all.
Better than the alternative, not working it.
Exactly. And it seems like that's all I can give. Actually, it's funny. Okay, I will say one thing. Monday, I had a good day. I actually felt good and everything was fine. And it was so strange because I'm going, wow, what if every day was like this? Nothing in particular. It just went well. So that's why I'm saying, but really every day is, I'm still working it. I guess you are too. I just wish
let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
What if every day was like that?
I know. I thought, wow, it would be awesome. So that's what I will work towards.
Right,
I had one good day, and I will remember it. I mean, it was like it was like an out of body experience. It was a totally different experience. I felt really good. I don't always feel that way because there's so many things. I'm not, like I said, I was always a complainer. If I didn't have this, I'd have that. If it's not this, it's that. And it is my nature, and I want to change that.
It's not your nature, but it is your habit.
Okay.
Right? We develop these habits, that's all.
Okay, it's not a nature. Okay.
But remember, the whole point of the whole book and everything else is, who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? We are choosing that in every moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, I don't want to put words in your mouth if you want to call it your nature, but I would say, it's a strong habit because we've been living a certain way for a long time.
I know.
But that's it's not who we are. It's not who you are.
Yeah. I know you mentioned it last week too. That's why I have to say that I'm, working it every day. And, but it's better. I mean, I can see it. I can see my outside surroundings are much better because it's my attitude. So, it's just, then it's the inside stuff. I don't know what it is. Something has to register, or maybe it's just a matter of time. I don't know. It will get better.
All right. Well, I can, I must, I will have a new attitude, have a new experience, shift how I see myself.
Yes.
This is for me at least, we got to want it. You got to want a different life. We got to want something different.
Okay, you hit a point. I know. I'm kind of at a neutral point right now. I don't know what I want. So I could work towards that. And, I just realized that I said that, and you always tell me I said that a lot. I always say, I don't know. I got to stop saying that.
Yeah, well, that's another, that's one of those affirmations that may not serve you. That's all.
Yeah.
We have these things we say all the time, over and over again. And it's affirmations, but they're negative. So we want to find a positive affirmation.
Yes, and let it come as easily as the other one. But things are good. Hopefully, things are good with you.
Things are good. And the other thing I was going to say was, okay, you may not know what you want, but do you know what you don't want?
Well, I mean, it can be easy to say. Since you're on this path of changing, I don't want to go backwards. I don't want that past thing. I mean, I know that, but it almost seems like I don't know how to put it. I'm not going to go back there. I would never go back there once, I don't think so. I just wouldn't let myself do that. So I know that I don't want what I used to be. So
all right, well, all I'm saying is that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So you know what you don't want,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually you'll know what you have more and more experiences. You'll say, "Oh, that was good. Like Monday, that was really good. I want more of that."
Yeah, I do want to say that. And I was a very angry person, and I haven't been angry in a while. And okay, so I can answer your question. I don't want to ever go back to being that angry person again.
All right, good. So I'm going to give you a little preview of chapter 6, even though we're still a few weeks away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So anger is always, at least for me, I see it with other people though, anger is always preceded by fear. So what I've learned for me is that when I'm angry, what's underneath the anger is fear. So when I'm angry, I'm really afraid. So what you can say is, I don't want to be angry anymore, but I would also submit, maybe try, I don't want to be afraid anymore.
Right. And I think that's what it is. When people are searching to be bigger than they are and everything, yeah, I bet you it is. It is all to do with fear. Because if you were minus the fear, you would be confident. You would feel, energized. You would feel like you could do whatever needs to be done if you didn't have that fear.
So that's what we talked about in chapter 4. We said fear is a paralyzing emotion. Fear holds us back. Fear manifests as resistance. So if there's stuff that we want to get done in life and we recognize we're not doing it, we're not moving closer to where we want to be or where we think we want to be, it's always a good question, to ask, what am I afraid of? Now, we also said in chapter 4 that the antidote to fear is love. Fear and love are two ends of the same spectrum. And Course in Miracles says fear is the absence of love. So when I talked about, in chapter 4, I talked about making cold calls for my photography business and how stressful that was. But what I realized was that it wasn't anybody else's criticism or rejection or whatever that I had to be afraid of. The people I was calling for I was pitching my photography business. I was just calling random people, businesses and companies and all of that in New Jersey and in New York. Those people, with almost without exception, those people were all very nice to me. Most of them weren't interested. But nobody, in 2 years of cold calling, I never got hung up on once. So what happened? So I was having this anxiety and this stress, and I would get on the phone and my hands were shaking and my voice would crack and I was sweating because I was terrified. But they weren't doing anything to me. They were all really nice. So what it turned out to be, it was my own rejection, my own criticism of myself that was creating all the fear. Because before, during, and after every phone call, I was beating myself up. You sound so stupid. Nobody's going to want to hire you. You don't know what you're doing. Who do you think you are? So that litany of negative thinking was what was creating the anxiety, the fear. Remember, negative thoughts lead to negative feelings. And negative feelings need to lead to negative words and actions, and negative words and actions lead to negative outcomes. Now we're going to, interestingly enough, we're going to be talking all about that tonight. But anyway, so I'm going to suggest to you that, maybe I don't want to be afraid. And in fact, maybe I want to bring love to myself or another person, if that's appropriate, when the fear comes up. Because what happened was, I just started being nicer to myself when I was making those phone calls. And it got so much easier. And again, the people didn't change. I just changed. I was just being nicer to myself. I stopped beating myself up so much.
Yes, I can understand that. And I can understand that. I had a difficult time with that person I'm working with. And ever since, with all of this, I just treat myself better. And the situation is better. I mean, it definitely is. I could see it. I don't want to get too crazy with it because, I know she hasn't changed, but I just have to be really good with myself. And that's how I deal with that. Yep. And it has made all the difference.
Well, you sound a little disappointed.
It sounded a little disappointed. When you say that, probably not disappointed. What would be the word? You're always afraid it's going to, okay, there it is. It's the fear. Okay, I'm not disappointed. I'm fearful. I got to get rid of that.
Well, also, no, but I mean, we actually sometimes, we're going to talk about this again in chapter 6. The ego, our ego does not want things to go well. Our ego does not want things to be calm, does not want peace. Our ego thrives on the drama, on the chaos, on feeling victimized, on justified anger. I always tell this story. So this was many years ago when I was living in Los Angeles. And I moved to a new place, and this was around the time that the cable TV companies were just starting to provide internet service. So the technology was still kind of new. Up until that point, it was all dial-up. It was all over the phone lines. So I saw, I moved. I got the cable TV company came. They said, we're going to give you television, but do you want to try our internet service? And I was like, sure, why not? So there were so many problems with this. It was so frustrating. They came out like 3 or 4 times, whatever. So finally, I just couldn't take it anymore. I called up. It was Cablevision. I don't even remember what the Time Warner Cable. I don't even know who it was. And I got this poor woman on the phone. And I said, God darn it, you've been here 3 times and this service still doesn't work. And I'm so angry and frustrated and it's all your fault. I said, I want 3 months free cable. I want free HBO. I want 3 months internet service for free. And I want you to send somebody here tomorrow who knows what they're doing. And, I was like hysterical. And she said, Mr. Alessandri, I'm so sorry you've had that experience. I will give you everything that you want. And we'll have somebody out there tomorrow. And in fact, I'm going to throw this in. She put something else in, And I got off the phone and I was disappointed. Yeah. Because I didn't want what I said I wanted. I wanted to continue to feel victimized by this big company that doesn't care about people and they're only out to get our money and da 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 da.
Yeah. You could laugh about it now.
So there is a part of us, which I call the ego, which Course in Miracles refers to as the ego. Eckhart Tolle refers to it as the ego. And it's this part of us that does not want peace. It's a part of us that does not want things to go well. It's a part of us that wants the drama, wants the conflict, wants to feel like a victim and blame everybody else for how we feel. Now, we're going to spend a lot of time on this in chapter 6. because I think it's really important to begin to recognize this part of our personality. I have yet to meet a person who doesn't have an ego. And in addition to what we normally think of as the ego, somebody who's full of themselves and who's arrogant or whatever, it's even worse than that. There's a darker side to all of this. So I would suggest that if you're disappointed or if you're bored, that things are good. Another thing that I recognize for me is, when things are good, it's boring. It's like I miss the drama. I got to be angry at somebody about something. So keep that in mind. So when things are going well, I was in a 12-step program for a long time, and one of the symptoms in that program was stability boredom, which was when things go well, we sabotage it because we want the drama. We want to feel justified in our anger. We want to feel unfairly treated by life. In some cases, it's very subtle. Other cases, it's not so subtle. But I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't have this in their personality. And it's something that I come up against this every day still. After all these years, I could still, but the good news now is I'm more aware of it. I'm more prone to catch it. And I'm more prone to say, you know what? I have a choice here. I can go down that road. I can feel really victimized by what happened. And you know what? I could probably tell 15 people and 14 of them would agree with me that I was right, because that's the other thing about the ego. The ego always wants to be right. The ego will do anything to be right and to be special. And we're going to talk about both of those things. Being right, special means better than other people. So this is what we're up against, and most of us don't realize that that's what's running our lives. There's this part of our personality that really thrives on being better than, making other people wrong. So the title of chapter 6 in the book is, would you rather be right or happy? Because the ego always wants to be right, and that means making somebody else wrong. All right, so I'm getting a little off tangent here, but I point this out so you know maybe what you're up against. So when things are good, we got to be aware of that. I have to be aware of it.
I only had one day, so I didn't have time to get bored. Okay, maybe it'll be 2 days, and then I'll understand it. No, thanks, Peter.
All right, good work, Barb. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else want to say hi? All right, so let us move on then. I have a victory. So another podcast. I did this podcast. I actually did this back in January, or maybe it was December. So this just came out this week. So if you go to my website, there's a link on the homepage, so you can listen to this podcast. It's about an hour and a half. This woman, Valeria, she's wonderful, beautiful person. She's been doing, kind of spiritual growth and personal growth, and she's been doing these podcasts for years. And she has a really great collection of people that she's interviewed. So I was very honored to be included in that. So about an hour and a half podcast. You can go to BeBiggerToday.com. Right on the homepage, you'll see this photo. Just click on it. It'll take you to the podcast. All right, so we are tonight we're going to review chapters 1 through 3 of the book. So we just finished up chapter 5, but I want to go back and talk about a lot of the principles from the first 3 chapters, because this is so foundational. And next week we're going to review chapters 4 and 5, and then in 2 weeks we're going to start on chapter 6. And chapter 6 and chapter 7 are the longest. Actually, chapter 6 is not that long. Chapter 7 is really long. But this is, there's going to be we're going to spend a few months on those 2 chapters. So I just wanted to come back to review our first 3 chapters tonight. So I'm going to play an excerpt from the audiobook. I actually went in and picked out 3 different excerpts, one from chapter 1, one from chapter 2, and one from chapter 3. I'm going to play that now. It's about 14 minutes. And then when we come back, we'll start our topic discussion.
Chapter 1. Who do you think you are? How you see yourself determines everything. Peter Alessandria. The 2 big problems many of us face when undertaking this work are, first, we're unaware that it's our internal self-image that runs our lives. We almost always think it's the external circumstances and conditions, including other people, that dictate how things go. Second, we're usually completely unconscious of how we see ourselves. The who we think we are that runs our lives is often buried deep within our subconscious minds. In terms of the first problem, understanding and more importantly accepting that our mental self-image is responsible for everything we experience in life, I'm going to slowly build a case for that. It turns out many of us have great resistance to the idea that we're the cause of our own misery. Moreover, the idea that who we think we are determines everything can at times be highly counterintuitive. With regard to the second problem, becoming more aware of our subconscious thoughts and beliefs about ourselves, we can jump in with the following example. Suppose you're confronted with what many people would consider a challenging situation, the unexpected loss of a job. To begin to understand how you see yourself in that situation, notice how you're characterizing the event. Do you label it as a disaster, awful, scary, and so on? Or do you use more positive terms such as, I'm free, or now I can do what I really want with my life? The way you describe the event, either to yourself or others, is the first major clue as to how you see yourself in that situation. The next clue, which is closely related to the first, can be found in the internal thoughts and feelings you experience. Negative thoughts and feelings probably mean that you see yourself in a not-so-positive way. Thoughts like, I'm screwed, there will never be another job like my last one, or I'm too old to compete in today's market, all reflect a who you think you are that isn't very confident or secure. On the other hand, if you're thinking and or feeling positively about no longer having the job, you probably see yourself as someone who can take care of themselves in that situation. You must have some measure of confidence that you're up to the challenge. Optimism and positive feelings are always a reflection of a positive self-image. Thus, the way we describe a situation and or how we think or feel about that event internally gives us clues as to who we think we are. Now, the reason it's so important to identify how we see ourselves is, as we said earlier, it's impossible to act in a way that's inconsistent with our primary thoughts and beliefs about ourselves. Our self-image in any situation will determine how we handle it. In the lost job example, if who we think we are in relation to that situation is negative, then we may find it more difficult to find a new job than someone with a more positive outlook and self-image. But there's another reason why it's so important to identify how we see ourselves. It's often much easier to change who we think we are than it is to change the situation itself. For instance, in the above example of losing our job, by the time we're confronted with the company's choice to let us go, it will likely be far too late to do anything about it. In fact, other than being the best employee we could while we had the job, we probably had little to no control over the company's decision-making process. And of course, even the best employees sometimes get let go during times of restructuring, etc. Likewise, our personal circumstances at the moment we become unemployed may also be difficult to change. For instance, our monthly expenses will likely be fixed in the short term. This means there's probably not much we can do, at least not right away, to change them. In contrast, we can begin changing who we think we are at any time. Yet many of us don't know we can do this. Rather, we're certain that who we are is fixed, usually by our past experiences. We say things like, this is just the way I am, or I'll never change, or you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Not only are such statements untrue, but they can keep us stuck in unhappy circumstances for many years, and maybe even our whole lives. But it gets worse. Not only do most of us deny that we have the ability to decide how we see ourselves in a given situation, we're unaware that we're already doing it. We're deciding in each moment who we think we are in relation to every event and circumstance we encounter in life. We'll discuss why this is so in a moment. For now, note that the fact we may be unaware we're doing it doesn't mean we aren't doing it. Chapter 2. Taking Responsibility. The price of greatness is responsibility. Winston Churchill. You make me feel. The problem is very few people have been trained to take ownership of how they respond to life. This is particularly true with regard to feelings. There seems to be an almost universal agreement that our emotions are the result of what's happening outside of us. You, it, they make me feel is a familiar refrain for most people. For instance, someone gives us a gift and we feel happy. Something interrupts us while we're working and we feel mad. In both cases, because we feel differently before and after the event, we think the event caused us to feel the way we do. Yet that's not true. As I'll show in this chapter, no one and nothing makes us feel anything, and by extension, think, say, or do anything. The fact that there's no causal connection between external events and our internal feelings is not necessarily intuitive. This is why I said previously I thought most people would resist the idea that they were the cause of their own misery. As we said in Chapter 1, information about an external event passes through our internal filter of who we think we are. The mind compares that data to what it already knows, who we've been in the past in similar situations. Once this comparison is made, the mind then assigns a meaning to the event. It's to this meaning that we react. Prior to this filtering process, the event has no meaning at all. It's always our subjective interpretation based on who we think we are that leads to a particular response. Moreover, it's this internal filtering process that breaks any causal connection between what's happening outside of us and how we feel inside. Let's look at a hypothetical example. Suppose you just submitted an expense report for a recent business trip. Moments later, your boss rushes into your office. He has an angry look on his face. He starts peppering you with questions about the expenses. You increasingly feel fear and anxiety. Your body tenses and your senses narrow. You become so tense that you can't speak. Instead, you just stutter and stammer your way through his questions. He grows more and more agitated and storms out of your office as quickly as he came. Flying down the hall, he promises to send someone else on the next business trip to Las Vegas. What caused you to react the way you did? The short answer is you did. Starting from the beginning, when your boss entered the office with an angry look on his face, your mind took this information and immediately ran it through the filter of what it already knew, who you were in previous situations with your boss. Since those prior encounters were usually negative, your mind gave this situation a similar negative meaning. This is going to be unpleasant, something bad is about to happen, and so on. Accordingly, you reacted with fear and trepidation. Moreover, since your thoughts lead to your feelings and your feelings lead to your words and actions, those negative thoughts about the situation gave rise to the fear and anxiety you experienced. This in turn resulted in your negative bodily reactions, i.e. the stuttering, stammering, and tense muscles. Finally, those negative reactions led to a negative outcome, you falling out of favor with your boss and him sending someone else on the next trip to Vegas. Now, of course, all this happens very quickly, too quickly to be the product of your conscious mind. You probably have a long history either with this boss or bosses in general. That history solidified who you thought you were in this situation. Thus, you came to your subjective internal conclusion almost instantaneously, and your emotional and physical reactions followed. Because it all happens so quickly, we assume the cause of our reactions is outside of us. Yet this is not true. No matter how fast they seem to unfold, our reactions are always about how we see ourselves and not about what someone else is saying or doing. With regard to this last point, what if you saw yourself differently? Imagine you were confident in your relationship with your boss and who you thought you were was his equal. Even if he looked upset when he came into your office, might your reaction have been different? Might you have calmly responded to his questions? Is it possible you could quickly find the receipts and satisfy his inquiry? Same people, same situation, different reaction. What changed? Only the meaning you gave the situation based on how you saw yourself. Chapter 3. True Power and True Happiness. Power is the ultimate aphrodisiac. Henry Kissinger. Happiness is wanting what you get. Dale Carnegie. Giving our power away. In the last chapter, we briefly discussed giving our power away. We said anytime we're blaming other people, being a victim, reacting rather than responding, or, as we'll see in the next chapter, acting out of fear or other negative emotions, we're giving our power away. This means we no longer have control over what we think, feel, say, or do. As we've said, when we place responsibility for these things outside of us, we lose our ability to change them. Doing this consistently makes for a very disempowered and unhappy life. Of course, we can't really give our power away. We've already noted a few times that no one and nothing has power over us. So we're still choosing everything we think, feel, say, and do, but now we're just blaming other people or the situation for those choices. We all do this in one way or another at one time or another. Yet I hope you're beginning to see this doesn't really serve us. A good example from my own life is public speaking. There was a time when I was terrified to speak in public. My hands would shake and I would sweat just thinking about being on a stage. Footnote 10. Depending on who you ask, fear of speaking in public, glossophobia, is in the top 5 fears for most people. It's right up there with fear of heights, fear of death, or fear of losing a job. Back to the text. When I got up there, I would freeze. It would literally feel like my mind had stopped working. I would stutter and stammer and generally have a miserable time of it. Of course, I blamed the situation and other people for my reactions. I was convinced it was because I was on a stage in front of an audience that I felt this way. I could point to the fact that when I was off stage, I didn't have so many issues. This was my proof that the situation was making me feel the way I did. The result was, for years, I routinely avoided anything that involved speaking in front of a large group of people. I was letting the situation dictate for me what I thought, how I felt, and what I said or did. Yet based on what we've said over the last 70 pages or so of this book, it should be clear that the situation was not the cause of my reactions. I was the cause of my reactions. In particular, how I saw myself in that situation dictated all my negative feelings. I ran what was happening outside of me through the internal filter of who I thought I was and arrived at a not-so-positive meaning for the situation. In my mind, I was incompetent, inept, and unattractive. These negative thoughts generated negative feelings, intense fear and anxiety, and the negative feelings in turn generated negative bodily sensations, shaking, sweating, stammering, freezing up, as well as negative avoidance behaviors. I shied away from public speaking. The result was I experienced negative outcomes. I bombed when I did speak in public, and I missed out on opportunities to expand my business and personal life by addressing large groups. Today, I have a totally different relationship with public speaking. I routinely speak to groups and really enjoy it. One week in particular in the summer of 2017 was just awesome. I was invited by a college in Colombia, South America, to speak to their students during their Semana Internacional, International Week. I ended up giving 7 lectures to nearly 1,000 students at 3 different colleges and loved every minute of it. I literally couldn't wait to get up on stage. Footnote 12. Actually, I like to come down off the stage and speak to the audience at eye level. I even sometimes walk to the rear of the room to better connect with the folks hiding out back there. It drives the event's audio-visual personnel crazy, but it really works for me. Back to the text. So what changed? At a certain point, I realized the problem wasn't with the situation. The problem was with me. I became aware that by avoiding public speaking, I was giving my power away. I was letting the situation decide for me how I felt. So I began to consciously and deliberately change how I saw myself. I believed in my mind that I was competent, capable, and even, dare I say, attractive while on stage. Seeing myself differently began the transformation from someone who was terrified to speak in public to someone who really enjoys it. It was my way of taking my power back and no longer letting the situation dictate my experience. As a side note, recall what I said earlier about becoming our own best friends and biggest cheerleaders. For a long time, I beat myself up and made myself wrong for almost everything, including my fear of public speaking. I had very little compassion for myself or any real understanding of the childhood difficulties that were behind my reactions. I thought I was just supposed to be able to get up there and do it. And when I couldn't, I was very, very hard on myself. Today, I can see that in many areas of my life, it was the self-recrimination that was a real source of my fear. I noticed that when I stopped beating myself up so much, there was a lot more I could actually do in my life. I increasingly have compassion rather than contempt for my shortcomings, and by extension, the shortcomings of others. I am not a bad or defective person because I had fear around public speaking. I've also found that the less I beat myself up, the more likely I am to take responsibility for my actions and reactions. The more I take responsibility, the more I embrace my true power, and I'm able to make lasting changes in my life.
All right, so those were excerpts from the first 3 chapters of the audiobook for Be Bigger Than You Think You Are. And that, I promise, that audiobook is going to be finished soon. So we're already past the halfway point of the workshop. So let's jump right into this. So I just want to review some of the critical or more important concepts from the first 3 chapters with you guys. So chapter 1, who do you think you are? Point 1, it's impossible to act in a way that's inconsistent with our internal self-image. Now, this can be good news or bad news. For many of us, it's not so good news. And I'll say, if you want to know who you think you are, look at what you have in your life. So, my relationships, my living situation, my financial situation, my work situation, even my physical health, it all reflects my idea about myself. It's all a reflection of who I think I am, how I see myself. So sometimes it's not so easy if we're unaware of that, but if you start looking at your life, and many of us have a lot of good things in our lives, so that's great. And there may be some things in our lives that we want to change. So for me at least, this question of how do I see myself in this situation, who do I think I am, is the jumping off point for any kind of change in my life. Now, you guys have heard me say this a million times. The situation is never the problem. The problem is always and only how I see myself in that situation. Now, it's not always so obvious, and nobody ever told me this when I was growing up, when I was a kid or whatever, even as an adult. If there was a problem, it was always outside of me. It was always somebody else who had to change. It was always some external something that had to be manipulated or had to be whatever. It had to be changed for me to feel safe, for me to feel okay. Number 3, so it's often much easier to change who we think we are than it is to change the situation itself. So, if I'm looking outside myself and I say, it's your fault that I feel this way, it's then becomes, okay, so how am I going to change you so I can feel okay? How am I going to fix you? How am I going to manipulate you? How am I going to threaten you so that I can feel okay? So you can change so I could feel better. It's very difficult to do that. And honestly, it doesn't work, especially if other people are involved. But it could even be, things like the weather or whatever. There's something outside of me that has to change for me to feel okay. Good luck with that. So that's why I say it's often much easier to change who we think we are, how we see ourselves, than it is to change the situation itself. And then this leads to point number 4. How we react to something is always determined by how we see ourselves rather than by the thing itself. Now, I'm going to talk a lot more about that when we get into chapter 2. But I want us to be aware that in every situation that challenges us, the jumping off point, the first inquiry, for me at least, you guys decide if this is true for you, has to be, gosh, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling uneasy, I'm feeling whatever, and in this situation, and Peter keeps saying it's not the situation, it's how I see myself in the situation. So I got to stop here and take a look at this and say, well, how do I see myself right now? Who do I think I am in relation to whatever's going on in the world, in the situation, with other people, or whatever? And then begin to question whether or not that's really true. So if I see myself as, oftentimes in work situations, for instance, I would feel uncomfortable, I would feel insecure, I would feel uneasy, and it was usually related to whether or not I was doing a good job, either for my employer or for a client. And so in that situation, the way I see myself is that I'm not competent, I'm not capable, I'm not a good employee, or I'm not a good photographer, I'm not a good lawyer, whatever I'm doing. There's some negative thought or belief about myself. That's what's causing the dis-ease, the uneasiness. It's not what the other person is saying or doing. It's not what's happening outside of me. Now, other people, I've said this a million times, other people often act inappropriately. Other people can be jerks in relationships or in situations. We're not making excuses for any of that. And if I'm feeling uneasy, it may be because I'm in a situation that's dangerous or inappropriate in some way. So we're not condoning somebody else's bad behavior, but we can't change that often or easily. But we can begin to say, okay, how can I shift how I see myself so I'm not so anxious, so I don't feel so insecure, so I don't feel so uneasy? So if I'm feeling insecure about my work, like my work isn't good enough, then I can begin to shift that. And I can begin to say, is that really true? I mean, I've been doing, I could say I have years of experience doing this type of work. I have lots of happy clients. My employer, tells me that I do a good job. So there are ways to begin to shift that idea that I have about myself, that I'm not good enough, that I don't have what it takes, that I don't know what I'm doing. And often those thoughts are based, we've spent a lot of time talking about this as well, those thoughts are based on some early childhood experiences that we didn't understand, that were traumatic in some way. And we're carrying that around in our subconscious mind, and that's the program that's running us as an adult, and we're not even aware of it. So the program that's running my life is, you're not good enough, nobody's going to like you, you don't have what it takes, you're going to screw this up, you're going to disappoint them, you're going to get yelled at. Those are the subconscious thoughts and beliefs that are running my life that I'm typically not consciously aware of. But when I go into a situation with a client and as a result, I feel insecure. Even though I have years of experience, I have years of proof that I'm good at what I do, that I know what I'm doing, I still have that negative feeling. And it comes out of that negative subconscious thought or belief about myself. So we want to start paying attention to that. So when we're in a situation and we feel uncomfortable, or we're angry, or we're afraid, it always comes back to how I see myself in that situation, and it's often much easier to change how I see myself than it is to change the situation itself. Certainly when it comes to changing other people, I spent a good part of my life trying to change other people, and it rarely worked out. I don't know about you guys, maybe you're better at that than I am. All right, so moving on to chapter 2. Chapter 2 is entitled Taking Responsibility. So one of the key points early on in this chapter is what I've said a bunch of times already tonight, which is our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our words and actions our words and actions lead to the outcomes that we experience in our lives. So if I start with crappy thoughts, I'm going to have crappy feelings. Crappy feelings, I'm going to speak crappy words and take crappy actions. Crappy words and actions, I'm going to have crappy outcomes in my life. Now, what's really important is to understand that every thought we think has the potential to manifest as an outcome in our lives. Every thought we think has the potential to manifest as an outcome in our lives. Do you think, if that's true, and I can see it in my own life, I see it in other people, do you think it might be helpful to begin to pay attention to the thoughts that we're thinking? Do you think it might be helpful to begin to have some awareness, especially in those situations that challenge us, about what's running through our head, about what's running through our mind, what we're about to say, what we're about to do based on those feelings? Every thought we think has the potential to manifest as an outcome in our lives. In the law of attraction work, some of you guys are familiar with law of attraction, they say you get what you think about whether you want it or not. So I would submit that it's really, really important that we start paying attention to what thoughts we're thinking all day long. We start noticing the repetitive patterns of thinking that we have that are negative, that are not serving us. Now, if we have positive patterns of thinking, then obviously that's great. Keep it up. But if there are negative thoughts and beliefs that we are carrying around with us, gotta be careful of that, because that starts the train. All right, and if we're not aware that number one, we have the ability to choose what we think, to begin to notice what we think and change it, and number two, realize that whatever we think it has the potential to have some real impact on our lives. Without that, we're going to continue kind of just, as I say, we can either be creators or reactors. And as a reactor, I'm just reacting to what's happening around me. I'm not in control of my life. I'm not in control of my emotions. I'll say something else, if I don't control my emotions are going to control me. Now, if our thoughts lead to our feelings, then you know what? If I'm not in control of my thinking, of my thoughts, then my thoughts are going to control me. So we want to start with some awareness. We want to start with some understanding that it's not just, thoughts have power. Thoughts are actually energy. And that's how we create our lives. Everything that we have in our lives started with a thought, a belief, a perception. There's some mental process, and that precedes our feelings, our words, and our actions. And our feelings, words, and actions precede the outcomes that we experience. All right? Now, the biggest lie that I think I tell myself and that I think other people tell themselves is, you make me feel. Talking about an external event, situation, or person. So it's either, you make me feel so good, I love you, baby, you make me feel so good. Or, I hate you, bitch, you make me feel so bad. We're always looking outside ourselves for the source of our emotions, of our feelings. And I've said over and over again, and this is so hard to swallow. This can be so hard to swallow, all right, that what somebody else is doing is not causing me to feel the way that I feel. I'm causing me to feel the way that I feel. And I'm going to tell you how that works in a moment. But until I get that basic understanding that I'm responsible for what I think, how I feel, what I say, and what I do, I have no chance of controlling my life. I have no chance of creating my life. As long as I think you have to change so I can feel good, I'm not in control of my feelings, of my emotional state. If I have to wait for you to get your act together so I could feel safe, secure, lovable, fabulous, whatever it is I think I'm going to feel when you get your act together, I'm putting my life in your hands. And most of the time, I've done that with people who they can't manage their own lives. How are they possibly going to manage my life? Now, again, this is not to say that other people don't have an effect on us. It's not to say that other people are acting appropriately. The other person may be acting inappropriately. They may be acting harmfully or whatever. But we still get to choose how we feel. We still get to choose what we think, what we feel, what we say, and what we do in that situation. All right? And it's not condoning somebody else's bad behavior. It's not saying we have to become a doormat for somebody else's bad behavior. I say over and over again, loving another person doesn't mean we stop loving ourselves. But they still, I don't care what they're doing, what they're being, what they've done, they're not causing me to feel the way that I feel. They're not causing me to think the thoughts that I'm thinking, the emotions that I'm feeling, the words that I'm saying, and the actions that I'm taking. And here's why. So what happens is when we encounter a situation, when we encounter another person, circumstances, whatever, the information from the outside world passes through our senses. So it comes through our visual sense, our auditory sense, we see or hear, and the information comes into our mind, into our consciousness, and then it has to pass through this filter that we have. And the way I look at this filter is that it is a function of who we think we are. Our mind takes our past experiences and builds up a self-image. And what happens is we take that information, pass it, none of this is conscious, this is just an automatic kind of reaction. We pass that information through this internal filter and we give the situation a meaning. Course in Miracles says, I give everything all the meaning that it has for me. We are constantly interpreting through our subjective process, internal processes, we're constantly interpreting the world. Everything we think we see is our subjective interpretation. So what happens is that information comes in, passes through this filter of who we think we are, who we've been in past situations, with similar people, and then we give that situation a meaning, and we react to the meaning. We're not actually reacting to what's happening in front of us or around us or outside of us. We're reacting to the meaning that we give that situation. And that meaning is always based on who we think we are, how we see ourselves in that situation. And that's just a fancy way of saying all our interpretations are subjective. All our interpretations are, based on our own subjective experiences, perceptions, and all of that. Now, why is that important? Well, I think it's really good to know that when I'm about to respond in a certain way, it really is not about what the other person is doing or not doing. I've had the experience now where somebody is attacking me, and I'm going to talk about this in Chapter 7, attacking me in some way. The experiences I mentioned in Chapter 7 were based on social media, Facebook, people attacking me publicly for my photos, for my work. I've had the experience of people attacking me, and I don't react defensively. I don't react attacking them back. I actually react with compassion and understanding and forgiveness. And when I've done that, it changes everything. I'm going to give you some specific examples in Chapter 7 about how not being defensive, not attacking somebody back, I actually turned, that's how those refrigerator magnets came about. I ended up with a 5-figure license deal because I didn't attack somebody back who attacked me on Facebook. So we can choose how we respond. And when we take responsibility, remember, responsibility is respondability, the ability to respond. So when we take responsibility for our actions and our reactions, we get to decide who we are in that situation instead of letting the situation decide that for us. The other example I gave in the audiobook tonight was public speaking. And for years, most of my adult life, I was terrified to do public speaking. And anytime I was going to be in front of a group of people, didn't matter how big or how small, I would freeze up, I was anxious, I was tense. It was horrible. And I blame the situation for that, because when I wasn't in front of people, I didn't feel so bad. When I wasn't on a stage or when I wasn't giving a talk. So I convinced myself that the situation was making me feel the way I was feeling. And then I realized, well, wait a second. Is that really true? Is the situation making me feel the way I feel, or am I making me feel the way I feel? And I began to play with this idea of, who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? And as I shifted that, my experience changed to the point where, I really enjoy public speaking. And I'm not nearly as anxious or, traumatized by it as I used to be. And the only thing that changed was how I saw myself. Same situation, different reaction. What's changed? How I see myself, who I think I am, what thoughts, beliefs, perceptions do I hold about myself? What do I believe is true about me? All right. So we have this filtering process. This filtering process breaks any causal connection between what's happening outside of us and how we feel inside. Now, the example I gave of people attacking me on Facebook, I still took care of myself. I had healthy boundaries. I didn't put myself in harm's way. I took care of myself, but I did it without attacking them back. I did it without being defensive. I did it without being, reducing myself to their level. All right, so we're going to talk a lot about that in chapter 6 and 7. All right, chapter 3, so true power and true happiness. So I define true power as the ability to consciously choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Now, why is this important? Well, it puts the ball back in my court. All right? Suddenly, I have the ability to determine how I experience the moment. I have the ability to decide how I'm going to respond in the situation. Remember, we talked about the difference between responding and reacting. Now, most of my life, I didn't know I had a choice. Most of my life, I didn't know I could consciously choose my feelings. I thought my feelings were just something that happened. And they just happened when you did something that triggered me or made me feel a certain way. So the idea that, wait a second, I can consciously choose, I have the ability to choose my thoughts, my feelings, my words, and my actions, that's pretty radical. Certainly was radical for me. So, but that's our true power. I say in the book, true power is not having power over other people. True power is having power over myself. When I can consciously and deliberately choose how I'm going to respond in this situation, I'm exercising my true power. What we call power is usually, if it involves other people, it's usually force, coercion, manipulation, and that never works out well. That never turns out well. So true power is the ability to consciously choose our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Now, what this means is, number 2, other people are powerless over us, and we're powerless over other people. Now, again, the example that I give, and I've talked about this before, is when I first got into CODA, Codependence Anonymous, my first 12-step program. And step 1 in CODA is we admitted we were powerless over others and our lives had become unmanageable. And for most of my life, I didn't think I was powerless over other people. I thought I could manipulate them. I thought I could control them. At least I tried to control, to manipulate, to cajole them, to seduce them into doing what I wanted them to do. And then the flip side of it was, I felt like other people had power over me. Other people could make me do things that I didn't really want to do. But I did it to keep them happy. I did it because I was a people pleaser and I wanted them to like me. But what I didn't realize was I was the one who was choosing to do that. They weren't making me do anything. I was doing what I was doing because I thought it was going to get me what I wanted in that situation. I was a people pleaser because I thought that was the only way I can get my needs met in the relationship. I thought I was a people pleaser because I thought that's how people were going to like me. And I wanted everybody to like me. It was a fate worse than death for me if people didn't like me. And the reason it was a fate worse than death was because I didn't like myself. So I had to look outside myself to feel validated, to feel loved, to feel approval and all of that. Don't do that. It's not fun. So we're powerless over other people. I cannot make anybody feel anything. All right? I'm responsible and I'm accountable for my behavior in the relationship. I'm accountable for my words and actions when I'm in relationship with somebody else, but I'm never responsible for their feelings. I'm never responsible for what they think, feel, say, or do. I'm accountable for my behavior. And if I do something that harms another person, we're going to talk about in chapter 6 or 7, we're going to talk about the difference between hurt and harm. I take responsibility. I'm accountable for when something that I do harms another person, as opposed to their hurt feelings. Their hurt feelings is a subjective determination on their part. I'm accountable for my harmful behavior, and I get to make an amends. I get to set things right. We talked about in chapter 3, we talked about responsibility is equal to the 3 A's: awareness, accountability, and action. Okay, so we want to be aware of the effect that our behavior has on ourselves or another person. We want to become willing to be accountable if our behavior has a negative impact. And then we want to get into action. The action part is setting things right, making an amends, making restitution, whatever we need to do to set things right. As opposed to, most of the time, I know for me, and again, I see it in other people, we equate taking responsibility with taking blame. We equate responsibility with liability, with guilt. If I equate responsibility with guilt, guess what? I'm not going to want to take responsibility. Because if I admit my mistakes, then it's just more, if I equate that with liability, with guilt, whatever, then it's just more proof that I'm a bad person. It's more proof that I'm messed up. It's more proof that I'm not good enough. So I'm never going to want to admit when I make a mistake if I think responsibility equals liability. If I think responsibility is the same as blame. So I've mentioned this before. It's been very helpful for me to begin to shift that thinking. And then I'm much more likely to take responsibility for myself, including my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Now, what's really interesting is when you break this down like this, I can't have power in my life until I'm willing to take responsibility for my life. Until I take responsibility for my part, I can't change my part. Until I take responsibility for my feelings, I can't change my feelings. Because as long as I'm blaming somebody else for those things, I'm powerless over them, so that means I'm powerless over my feelings. I'm powerless over what I think, feel, say, and do. Now, the truth is, we're never powerless over that. We just think we are. And what I do is, instead of taking responsibility, I do what I do, and then I blame somebody else for that. Well, I acted this way because of what you did to me. You did it to me first. I talk about I think it's in chapter 6, I have some young nieces and nephews, a couple of 5-year-olds, and whenever there's a fight between them, they always say, well, he did it to me first. She did it to me first. What we're saying is, and it's surprising, maybe not so surprising, how as an adult I can still think like the 5-year-old. And what we're really saying is, I'm justified in doing this to you because of what you did to me. But that's not taking responsibility. It's the same as saying, I'm blaming you for what I'm about to do because of what you did to me. Now again, I'm not saying we have to put ourselves in harmful situations. I'm not saying we have to put up with somebody else's inappropriate behavior. But there are ways to take care of ourselves that don't involve blaming somebody else for our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And when we begin to recognize that and take responsibility for those things, we get our power back. Because power and responsibility are the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. And the last part of review for chapter 3 is true happiness. I've said this several times to you guys. For me at least, again, it may be different for you. Happiness is not a feeling. Joy is a feeling. Affection is a feeling. Pleasure is a feeling. Happiness is a decision. It's a choice that we make. True happiness means we choose to be happy. Well, here's the definition, number 6. It's an ongoing internal decision to feel joy no matter what. We're happy for any reason or for no reason at all. Now think about that. If I can choose to feel happy, to feel joy when the stuff is hitting the fan, when, you know, things are not going so well in my business, when things are not going so well in my personal life, I'm exercising my true power. I mean, that's a statement when I can choose how I feel independent of what's going on around me, I'm in my power. It's those moments that I'm creating my life. As long as how I feel, what I think, feel, say, or do is dependent on what I think is going on outside of me. And remember, we don't really know objectively what's going on outside of us. We have our subjective interpretation, the subjective meaning that we give that situation. As long as I'm reacting to that, then I don't have the ability to consciously choose and consciously create my own life. To me, it's the ultimate expression of power to choose to counteract fear or hatred or attack, to counter that with love. See, it's very easy to attack back. It's very easy to do what they're doing. But guess what? That just escalates the conflict and everybody ends up losing. But if I can choose to react to somebody with love, compassion, understanding when they're attacking me, or when, you know, now again, I still take care of myself. If it's a physical kind of thing, I make sure that I'm protected or whatever. And I may have to actually leave the situation. I'm not saying we stand there and let somebody beat us up. But I think, for me at least, more often than not, I realize I do have the ability to choose in that moment a positive reaction, a positive emotion, a positive way to engage with the other person. But I never knew that because I thought, well, they make me feel the way I feel, so I just have to react the way I react, and I'm justified. You want to be really, 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 really conscious of this. Whenever you feel justified in doing what you're doing, that's the ego. The ego always feels justified. So if you're doing what you're doing and saying, I'm justified in doing this because of what you did to me, that's the ego. Now, you can do that if you want, and maybe that works for you guys, but it doesn't work. I can see now how that has not really worked for me, and it's only made things worse. All right, so true happiness is an ongoing internal decision to feel joy no matter what. Remember, I said truly happy people are probably happy despite the events and circumstances of their lives rather than because of them. Now, the last thing, I think, for me, I've seen this again in myself, I see it in other people. We often mistake satisfaction, relief, fun with family and friends, and or physical pleasure. We mistake those things for happiness. They are not happiness. There's nothing wrong with satisfaction. There's nothing wrong with relief. There's nothing wrong with having fun with friends or family. There's nothing wrong with physical pleasure. But those things are not true happiness. And the very simple reason is because those things are all dependent on what's happening outside of us. Remember, happiness is an internal decision. It's not based on what's happening outside of us. Satisfaction, just real quick. So satisfaction usually comes when I get something I want. The example I've used with you guys in the past is camera equipment or whatever. So, you know, I'm lusting after this new camera or lens or whatever, and I finally get it, and I feel that feeling of satisfaction. Nothing wrong with that. Totally okay. But it's dependent, my feeling good is dependent on me getting that piece of camera equipment or whatever. So it's dependent on something outside of me. And the problem is the feeling of satisfaction, the feeling of relief, fun, and physical pleasure, they don't last. The cameras that I was lusting after 2 years ago, I'm looking at them right now, and it's great, they're cool, but I don't have that same feeling anymore. I want the next one. So satisfaction doesn't last. Likewise, if we have pressure, financial pressure or something like that, and we get some relief, we make some money, we get a windfall, whatever. Nothing wrong with that. Totally okay, totally cool. We feel relief. Good, perfect. But just know that that's not true happiness because the relief fades. And then another pressure comes along, another problem comes along. True happiness is when the pressure is there and we still feel joy. True happiness is when we don't get what we think we want and we still feel joyful. We still feel happy. So all of this is about taking our power back. All of this is about experiencing who and what we want to be in each moment, regardless of what's going on around us. All right? Again, we don't put ourselves in harm's way with inappropriate people. We don't have to subject ourselves to somebody else's bad behavior. It's not about any of that. But it is about making the choice in each moment, who do I want to be in this situation? But I can't say who do I want to be until I know who I think I already am. So when I say, oh, all right, so the way I see myself in this moment is, again, I see myself as unworthy, not good enough, don't have what it takes. Is that really true? How do I want to see myself? How can I shift that? Okay, I have experiences that prove that I am good enough, that prove I do have what it takes. Let me focus on that. Let me think of myself in that way. And then let me approach the situation from that place. So instead of approaching the situation from a place of insecurity or lack or not good enough or whatever, I approach the situation from a different place. And that changes my experience of it. All right, so we are way over time, guys. So I'm going to play the song let's look at, all right, just real quick. I've covered this the first couple of weeks of the workshop. These are some tools that we can use to change how we see ourselves. Positive affirmations, vision statement, guided visualizations, meditations, a vision board, and the mind movies. So this is all in I think it's in chapter 2 in the book. And if you go back to some of the earlier, back in probably August, I think it was in August, I covered some of these and I gave examples and all of that. So these are tools that we can use to change how we see ourselves. Here's the assignment for tonight. It's often much easier to change who we think we are than it is to change the situation itself. Agree or disagree. Give 3 examples of the internal filtering process that I described. And then true power is not having power over other people. It's having power over ourselves. Agree or disagree. Give examples. Let me play the song, and I'll come back, and then we'll have our Q&A. All right, we're back. So it's hard for me to love my life when I think the world has power over me, when I think other people are causing me to act the way I act, feel the way I feel, and all of that. So I know I'm kind of harping on all this, but everything I need to learn. All right, so who wants to talk about any of the questions for tonight or anything that we covered? We'll kind of leave it open-ended. So other people making us feel the way we feel, true power, true happiness, any of that stuff. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Thank you. I was in a situation not too long ago, and it's been a recurring situation in my life because I didn't know that I was making other people look like what I was filtering through here. So I was in a situation where I filtered something through my head that another person said to me, and I heard it and I spoke it. But what she said and what I said were not the same. The filter had created a different verbiage from my mouth. So things changed in my life as a result of that. A lot changed, and that's happened a few times in my life. And this time, because of the support of a few groups that I have participated in this last year, I was able to do what I had never been able to do before, which was to move forward with my own responsible actions and to ask for help, which I have done repeatedly. I have received that help. I have moved forward, and the process is unfolding like lotus petals. That's what it feels like to me. So, am I there yet? No, but I loved the words that you have in your book about awareness, accountability, and action and responsibility. Those are in a book I've written also. And I think, aren't those amazing words? They're just wonderful words. So I'm going to keep word hunting and asking for help and allowing this manifestation process to occur. That is the unfolding. So thank you so much for all that you are doing, because you are certainly a part of this unfolding and support. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm glad to hear it. And I've had that experience too, where it's a surreal thing where, you think somebody says something or does something, and then they repeat it back, and it's like, it's completely different. It's this weird thing, and we don't get that all our perceptions are subjective. It's actually, if you read A Course in Miracles, it's even worse than that. The Course says projection makes perception. So the Course says we're actually projecting out everything that we think we see on the world. We're not going to go there tonight. But the point is, our subjective interpretation and the meaning that we give the situation as a result is what we're actually reacting to. We're not reacting to what's actually happening. Now, again, not to make ourselves wrong, we're doing the best that we can. Sometimes, we're making good choices, we're making good decisions. If somebody else is acting inappropriately, it's good to kind of, be aware of that and understand the potential negative impact that can have on us. But for me, it was eye-opening to realize that there's one step removed between what's actually happening and what I think is happening. And what I think is happening is always based on how I see myself, because when I see myself as somebody who can take care of himself, then I don't have to react defensively. I don't have to attack them back. I don't have to engage in that kind of behavior. Whereas in the past, I didn't think I had a choice. But I didn't realize the problem was not with what they were doing. The problem was with how I was seeing myself in relation to what they were doing. All right, great. Thanks, Cynthia. Anybody else? I know we're over time, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Anybody?
Oops. Peter, I just want to, it's Dee Dee. Hi, sorry I missed my Victories opportunity, but that's okay. I just want to give a quick plug to the true power is in my very own thinking, and doesn't have anything to do with out there. It's such a huge concept, and it never fails to be true. And so I will just keep coming back because I need a lot of work in this area. I've come a long way, and there's always, I think what happens, I heard you say it earlier, it's because of my filters, my past, my filters, that I get an instant reaction or a trigger. And those are the times when I really have to just, practice restraint of tongue and pen or whatever it is, restraint, and not react. And that's where I need the practice the most. So every time I feel the fear and then the anger, that's when I need to step back from the situation until I can have enough brain cells to evaluate what really happened. Anyway, I love being here with you all. Thanks so much. Pass.
Thanks, Dee Dee. Great. So yeah, the difference between responding and reacting. Responding is when we bring some conscious intention to the situation. And I still think, the truest expression of our power as human beings is having power over how we respond to life. Responsibility, respondability. And, sometimes it's not as much fun because I can't blame everybody else now for how I feel. But that's a dead end anyway. So, all right, great. Thank you, Dee Dee. Who else? Barb, you coming back for another round?
Not really, but because I was doing things. But no, I mean, I'm just saying again, but you've talked to me about it, or we've talked about it. Responding is a big thing. And, once we get to that point where we don't respond like we used to and negatively, the outcome is so much better. And so I would have to say, well, okay, it's a victory. I don't respond like I used to respond. I don't respond at all. I just listen to them. I listen to these crazy people talk, and it's not my place to respond anymore.
Well,
so it's
you
good.
respond, you don't react.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm saying the wrong thing. Yes.
Well,
react.
because we do
Kind of the same
respond,
thing.
we interact, but but the difference is when we're reacting from our old habitual way of seeing ourselves, our own dysfunctional way of interacting. So you can call it whatever you want.
Right, respond to react, because I said to you, sometimes I used to say stupid things. Now I don't say those stupid things, and it feels so much better. So whichever word you want to use, respond to react, I don't do it.
All right, good. Anybody else? All right, so all right, I guess we'll play the song, the final song, and then we'll come back for our final goodbyes. All right, guys, so that's it for this week. We're going to do our hangout on Sunday afternoon. All are welcome. You want to tell friends or whatever. Totally unstructured, not going to be recorded, just a time to socialize. And we'll start doing these every month, once a month. So that's it. Anybody want to say anything else about anything?
Peter, something I was trying to say, but I didn't have the connection. Is on your website, do you have a page of resources where you have like all these books that you're recommending and all the different websites and that sort of thing that are easy click? Just a thought.
Yeah, no, I actually don't. They're in the back of the book. I have recommended reading in the book and putting affirmations, but that's not a bad idea. So I'll put, I guess I could do some kind of a resources kind of thing on the website. So thank you for that suggestion. I'm not sure
Yeah, maybe they'll even pay you to be on there. Some of those people, you never know.
Yeah, you're right. Affiliate links from Amazon. All right, good. Thank you for the suggestion, Dee Dee. Anybody else? All right, so next week we're gonna review chapter 4 and 5. Chapter 4 was FEAR to LOVE, and then chapter 5 was decision making and the desire to feel better. And then in 2 weeks we'll start on chapter 6, and that's going to take us into the last part of the book. So you guys are doing great. I love that you guys show up every week, and I'd love to see how people are applying this in their own lives. It really means a lot to me, so thank you guys for that. And we'll carry on. All right.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great week, guys. Be
Thank you,
bigger than
Peter. Thank you, everyone.
Be bigger than you think you are today and every
Bye,
day.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Peter.
Thank
All right.
you. Bye.
Bye.